how the government jailed protesters by misleading the courts.
Showed complete and utter disrespect for the courts by lying over and over.
Last August, hundreds of people tried to block construction of a logging road at Perry Ridge, north of Nelson. The attempt was unsuccessful because the Provincial Attorney General's branch managed to clear the area using an injunction that was later found to be based on misleading information. Coming up later on Cover Story, telling the judge, the reports that did not say what the Crown claimed, jail time for trespassing on Crown land that wasn't Crown land, and taking it to court, how the victims are fighting back, later on Cover Story. Next on Cover Story, the arrests and the court cases based on misrepresentation.
To me, that's malicious prosecution because they're proceeding on knowing that they're hiding the facts.
How the Perry Ridge protesters are fighting back when Broadcast 1 returns.
Attempt to win re-election. Public debt that protects him.
I'd like to call the House to order.
The provincial New Democrats have always had a tricky balancing act dealing with environmentalists and their friends in the logging community. But in one particular case in the Slocan Valley, the Attorney General's department jumped in to tip the scales of justice to favor the logging interests. And in the process, someone in government misled the courts. Tonight on Beyond the Scrum, the battle returns to the court. And this time, the government is on the defensive. Here's Wayne Williams.
I ask that all those people, please remove yourselves from this right away. For those people who do not remove themselves, they will be arrested.
You're under arrest for contempt of court.
Goodbye, Jack, I love you.
76-year-old Jack Ross knew the consequences when he tried to stop a logging road from being built last summer. He spent 70 days in prison, and not just for his act of civil disobedience. Jack Ross was locked up for telling the truth. He says he couldn't honestly sign an order promising to stay away from the road.
To me, it didn't make sense to block it for once and then not come back.
But while Jack Ross told the truth, the government was not so honest when it went about getting the injunction that got him and the others arrested. Only a handful of the 350 people who were at this logging protest in the Kootenays last summer actually refused to obey the court injunction. Some of them were charged with criminal contempt. But now they are taking the government itself to court with serious allegations that the government acted improperly, not just once, but twice. This isn't about another logging protest here in the backwoods of BC. It's about politics being played out in the courtrooms of the province. People may not trust politicians generally, but the Attorney General and his staff are supposed to be above the fray, especially when dealing with the courts. But that may not be the case, as the people who were here protesting on this road last summer now believe.
It's worrisome that a government will fabricate a court case so they can do what they want, even at the risk to the citizens of the Slocan Valley.
MARILYN BURGOON lives in the shadow of Perry Ridge. Perry Ridge is an hour drive north of Nelson, in the heart of the Kootenays. Burgoon worries logging above her home will make an unstable mountain even more unsafe. Landslides are already too common.
You can't time those landslides. One morning I went to pick my son up. He was on the other side of a landslide.
The sun just sunk. It just went straight down.
What happened to Austin Greengrass's property 18 months ago really drove the point home.
No warning whatsoever.
And boom, down it goes.
And then boom, down it goes.
The land didn't slide, it just sank overnight.
Before the slump, the house was assessed at a land value and house value of $105,000, and now it's assessed at $6,900.
How close were you to paying off the $100,000?
I had less than a year to go on the mortgage.
Government experts could only tell him that Perry Ridge is what they all knew. It's unstable. So when the Ministry of Forests decided it wanted to punch a logging road along the top of the ridge anyway, this former heavy-duty mechanic joined the environmental movement. He joined MARILYN BURGOON and the 350 others at his first logging protest last August.
We're here today after 25 days of protest.
And no one was leaving until a court order forced them to. The Ministry of the Attorney General went to court. It gave the judge a list of scientific papers it claimed supported its case that the road building would be environmentally sensitive. The injunction was granted.
The injunction reads in the Supreme Court of British Columbia dated August 1st, 1997.
And therefore I'm placing you under arrest for contempt of court.
Although only 16 people were arrested, 5 of them were charged with criminal contempt of court.
How far into your hands go?
Dustin Cantwell was charged, convicted, and spent 9 days in jail.
I got him.
3 months after the road was cleared, the first of the government falsehoods was discovered. The technical reports used to get the injunction didn't all support the government position. One author clearly said, "I would recommend against any road building or logging activity on Perry Ridge." When the judge had it pointed out to him and got copies of all the technical reports, he concluded the government had misled him. He threw the injunction out, but not the charges. A court order is a court order and must be obeyed, even if it is based on misleading information. And so the convictions and the penalties stand.
A Supreme Court judge is trying to make an honest decision. They're trying to make the best decision they can based on the facts. Well, if you don't give them the facts, then you're obstructing that judge's ability to make a clear sentence. That's wrong.
Although MARILYN BURGOON wasn't arrested, she's still upset.
Who's pushing this government to do what it's doing and to do it through misrepresentation?
Even though the government got caught misleading the courts, it's continuing its tough stance. It's suing some of the protesters for trespassing on Crown land. But apparently, there's another deception. The land that the government has so valiantly defended since last summer actually was private land until just 2 months ago.
When I first was on the job, I went, really? You know, sure, you're supposed to trust the government, you know. They wouldn't deceive us, would they?
We just assumed that the government had told the truth to the courts, had come and had expropriated that property. We understood we were on Crown land. That's why most of us got off the road.
Documents on file at the land registry indicate the property actually belonged to a neighbor. During the protest, when the road was finally pushed through after the protesters were gone, and even when the protesters were sentenced to jail.
It's not a technicality. I was arrested on private property. I wasn't even arrested on Crown land. The whole thing is a total farce.
Matt Lowe spent 18 days in jail and is on probation for 2 years for his role in the protest.
I sat in court listening to the Crown prosecutor say over and over again that these people disrespected the courts, that Your Honor, you should certainly consider this in their sentencing. And now we find out that the Attorney General and the BC government showed complete and utter disrespect for the courts by lying over and over and over again.
Employees from this office negotiated for the land, but a senior official from here swore in a court document that the road will be built entirely on Crown land. Brian SIMPSON is the district manager.
We're completely confident that the Crown has all the legal right to be there and had the legal right at the time of construction. So there's no question in our mind.
A number of people now have filed a lawsuit against the government.
Some of the protesters are now going after the government for wrongful arrest and false imprisonment.
Who are counterclaiming.
The Attorney General refuses to comment.
There was a court order that was enforced, and I think it's appropriate that their claims and their allegations are deliberated upon by independent judiciary, and they will determine the facts.
The Attorney General wanted a permanent injunction to prevent this road from being blockaded again. The courts have not given him one. Road building will continue on Perry Ridge this summer. The protesters have not announced their plans. For Beyond the Scrum, I'm Wayne Williams.